Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast, powered by Top Producers Nation. You can check us out, of course, at topproducersnation.com to actually see the community and all the shared resources that we have in place to help you become a top producer in your desired market, wherever that market may be. We obviously serve here locally at the Tampa Bay area. This podcast is made for top producers, people who want to become top producers, people who already are top producers, and produced, of course, by our local top producers. But we also have our partners locally of the Tampa Bay Real Producers franchise, and that, of course, is part of our partner series that we bring on to the show as well. So today we get to actually hang out with one of those partners, which is Mr. DJ Rondeau. How you doing, brother?
Doing pretty well. Thank you, Don.
It's good to have you here, man.
Thank you.
DJ and Beta Bay Lending have been a supporter of the Tampa Bay Real Producers franchise really since we started back in 2019. You're probably, if you know anything about our local, franchise and the events and stuff that we throw, DJ and Beta Bay have supported a lot of them over the years. So we really appreciate their support and their passion for what we've tried to build here on a local level. And so I think it'd be cool to just dive in a little bit to your story and for people to get to know you a little bit more. Did you grow up in Tampa? If not, how did you find yourself here in Tampa Bay? And eventually, what got you interested in the lending game?
I'm not from Tampa. I'm originally from Michigan. Bay City, Michigan is where I'm from. When I moved to Florida in 2000, I initially landed in Naples, Florida, where my grandmother and some of my aunts and uncles lived. And I lived there for about a year and a half. And then I got my associate's degree down there and finished up my my associate's, and then moved to Tampa, where I wanted to, pursue my accounting degree at USF. After finishing in accounting, shortly thereafter, I ended up, some friends of mine were working for a big nationwide construction loan lender, National City Mortgage. And that's when I started cutting my teeth in the mortgage business, so to speak. And after a few years, the company pulled out of Florida. We all migrated over to Countrywide, where we were at for about a year and a half.
Familiar with Countrywide. I think my first mortgage was with them back in like 2007 before Bank of America took them over, right?
Exactly. So me and all my buddies, we all left National City. We went to Countrywide. We were there for a while. We had a good run. It was a tough time. It was the end of 07 and beginning of 08. And then it was like end of May, beginning of June of 08. And they came and they let us know that we were being acquired by Bank of America. Mm-hmm. And that's when I decided to look for other employment, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And one of my friends, Phil Yost, he had introduced me to Brian McBride, and the rest is kind of history, so to speak. Here I am.
Very cool.
It's been 17 years now, almost 18 years I've been with Beta Bay. Mm-hmm. And
did you and Brian start Beta Bay then?
No, we did not.
It already existed?
Correct.
Okay.
Brian had started the company a few years before that, in 05, with Rick Kelly, his business partner, when they started McBride Kelly as well.
Yep.
And then when I came on in 08, after a few years, I started achieving top producer accolades. And then it was like 13 or so, I became partner.
Okay.
And then I got more and more ownership as time went on, and I bought out a couple partners along the way. And now I'm managing partner and our broker.
And you and Brian are the two partners, is that correct?
Correct. Brian and I, and we also have a couple other minority owners as well.
Gotcha.
But yes, it's
cool.
A locally owned, family-owned company. We're a broker. For a few years there, we were a correspondent from 2015 to 2000, I'd say the end of 22, at which time we decided to migrate back to the broker platform to remain more competitive, cut costs, so to speak. Running a correspondent or a mini non-delegated operations pretty expensive from an operational payroll perspective, and all the warehouse lines and things like that. It gets out of hand.
Yeah.
And then, basically to provide lower rates to our customers and more flexibility, that's when we decided to go broker.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what brought you to Florida originally? Was that school?
No, it was a new opportunity, so to speak. At the time, I was working in Michigan. I was bartending. I was going to school a little bit here and there. I had worked a couple summers for General Motors, They worked for Delphi Automotive.
Sure.
And at the end of 90 days each summer, they would basically let us go because we didn't check the boxes, so to speak, or there were certain hiring criteria that they were looking for that I didn't meet. So eventually I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to do this the rest of my life anyways. I want to spread my wings, move to Florida, get my degree, Met my wife, and obviously I have a family now.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of led me to where I am, which is God's will, obviously. So
No doubt. So Beta Bay, you mentioned the focus on being a brokerage. For people who might not be as familiar, when you are in the lending world, right, there's different types of company structures out there, right? You got your brokers, you got your in-house lenders, right? Mm-hmm. If you can talk just a little bit about those distinctions and what your experience has been like in working with them, or just what do you think is important for someone to know about the different distinctions here and what that means?
Absolutely. I like to tell my team and customers when I explain this to them, because oftentimes they ask me questions. They're like, if you're my broker, do you take me through my credit union? Or like they don't understand the whole layout of the land when it comes to lending.
Yeah.
And there's three major entities when it comes to lending. You've either got like banks, credit unions, large financial institutions that are lending their own money, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They've got their rules. You get their comp. You follow all their guidelines, their overlays. Like you're just kind of stuck and married to that one lender,
mm-hmm.
which good, bad, or indifferent, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And then kind of on the far opposite end of the spectrum, you've got a broker, which is a small independent, it could be a mom and pop operation, it could be a very large operation, but it's more independent and much more flexibility. A variety of lenders, like we have over 30 different lenders that we're signed up with that we consistently close, are conforming government, non-QM, jumbo, construction, renovation, hard money loans with. So we've got a wide variety of different loans. So if you've got I'm sorry to digress, but we've got the mortgage companies over here like credit unions, banks, you got the brokers over here, and then in between you have correspondent lenders. Companies such as like Loan Depot, Guaranteed Rate, places like that. Loan Depot's out of business now, I believe. But those are the companies that are correspondent lenders, and what they're basically is they're kind of an intermediary between, or they're kind of a hybrid, mm-hmm. so to speak. They're not a bank, they're not a broker, they're a financial institution that's signed up with a bunch of different wholesale underwriters, so to speak, and then they got huge warehouse lines that they fund these loans on. There's a little bit more cost associated with that than the broker realm.
Mm-hmm.
The major reason for doing that is more flexibility, a little bit quicker on things like disclosing the loan.
More flexibility than the bank side.
Correct. More
right.
flexibility than the bank side, because they can kind of shop a little bit more than a bank can, where you just got that set of guidelines.
Yep.
Correspondent in between offers more flexibility than a bank, but still not as much as a broker, and oftentimes has higher costs than brokers have, mm-hmm. with the warehouse lines, the additional employees, and things like that.
What would cause somebody then to be a corresponding option rather than just being a broker? Why would there be a distinction there?
Well, to make more money, to charge higher premiums than you can make as a broker.
That makes sense.
As a broker, you can make like 2.5%, maybe 3% on a deal, period. 3% is the max, but you don't make that much. But on a correspondent loan, you can make 4, 5, 6, even 7 or 8.
Just different regulation? Is that
different regulations, and the way that the loans are regulated is how much premium is paid at closing. And that's a delineation. As a broker, the deal closes and funds at closing, so everything's out there.
Yeah.
Consumer sees what our company makes. It's very honest. We disclose it up front, but everything's there. As a correspondent lender, you don't have to disclose that.
Interesting.
Because the way that the profits transferred doesn't happen at closing. It happens after closing when the loan sells. That's when the profit's recognized.
So it's hidden in the documents. You don't even recognize.
The regular layman wouldn't recognize that at all. You wouldn't even see it. It's just buried in the origination cost.
Yeah.
So like those are the three realms, and quite frankly, I've worked for all three in my life. I started out in the banking world. I came to Beta Bay and I was a broker. Halfway through my time at Beta Bay, we became a correspondent lender. Even when I bought out 2 of my partners and took over the company as a majority owner, we were still a correspondent lender. So I kind of got to learn that lesson of how much more difficult it is and how much more you're operating as a correspondent lender than you are as a broker.
Yeah. You
got a lot more out there. You have huge warehouse lines, several $1 million warehouse lines with different warehouse banks, constantly pulling credit every couple months,
And then you guys pivoted back to the brokerage model, it sounds like.
Pivoted back to the brokerage model. They cut costs, lower rates, give our loan officers, more flexibility.
Yeah.
And really our clients a better product. Quite frankly, lower margins and lower fees.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, man, because I think we've had other lenders for sure on this show, and obviously a lot of people, especially agents out there, work with lenders all the time, but I don't think, at least from my perspective, that's commonly known, right? The way that you just laid that out with those 3 different options. So I think that's very educational and informational for everybody, so I appreciate that. So in your experience, DJ, now, you obviously know that we do a lot of work with agents, right, in terms of top producers and so forth. So what's been your experience in terms of working in those relationships with the top producers? Is there any distinction you've noticed with like the top agents in Tampa Bay versus your normal everyday agent that's out there in the market, that you can pinpoint any differences in terms of the two, or what do you think are the keys to that?
I have worked with quite a few top producing agents in my career. One thing I can say clearly delineates top producing agents over most other agents that either do this part-time or aren't quite as focused is exactly that focus and organization, and upfront laying out the deal correctly, from the contract being written correctly to the addendums being provided correctly, and just the consumer understanding the timeline and expectation. Because then when you do that up front, the consumer is much more prepared for the transaction, and they don't run that agent all the time. The agent kind of like sets it and forgets it, lets it go. They know their expectation. Obviously, they're involved in the process. But there's a lot less indecision, so to speak, in the process with a top producing agent that's closed a ton of deals. It can tell you, like when you get a call from an irate client or a really upset client on a weekend, it's supposed to close in a couple days, go, I don't know if I'm making the right decision. Half the time these top producing agents, they're psychologists, you know what I mean? They're working working through the issues that the person's having, I'm afraid of this, or I'm afraid of that, or what happens if this, and it's the last minute jitters, so to speak. But as an experienced agent, as a top producing agent, you can kind of just cut right through that and help your clients understand, like, listen, I see people in this situation all the time. You're going to be okay. You've got a home warranty. You've got this. Whatever explanation it is you're giving the consumer, top producing agents can always handle, like, when something goes wrong, an appraisal comes back short, we need to work through an inspection issue. You don't run into issues like that with top producing agents. They can just kind of cut right through it. Value comes back short on appraisal, no problem. We've got this. And that's what cuts. To me, that's what the delineation is. When you've got a newer agent or an agent that's not as experienced as a top producer, it's not as natural and it's not as easy to kind of go through the process.
No, I love that. I think the importance of the ability to communicate at a high level, right? You mentioned the importance of being a consultant and knowing exactly what the needs are and how to be able to get somebody to that next phase. As a lender, do you prefer a situation where once you work with an agent and they have a client, they now put them in contact with you, you're dealing with the loan, do you want that direct communication with that client, one-on-one, or do you want to still work through that communication through the agent? Do you find that certain agents require you to work through them rather than have that direct access? Like, what do you prefer? What have you seen work?
I see it both ways. I see some agents that are like, listen, I want to know about the loan process, but I don't want to be copying everything. I have too much going on.
Yeah.
And I respect that. Like, okay, I'll just email you on accolades or shoot you a text, like when I need to let you know something, like, hey, appraisals tomorrow. It's every agent kind of, that's the thing. Each agent's individual, and they're different. Oftentimes, top producing agents, they have transaction coordinators, and they do prefer to be copied on things, at least like upfront communication, or like when you're trying to structure a deal. If a client's like, hey, I want to buy this property, I'm kind of involved to help them understand, like, all right, based on that property, based on your down payment, based on our insurance numbers, tax numbers, you're bringing, let's just say, $75,000 to closing. Like, well, I really only wanted to bring $60,000. Well, how we do that is we negotiate $15,000 in closing costs, and we have to, get with the agent and make sure that they understand the net offer needs to be X in order to get the seller to net Y. So if you need $15,000 in closing costs, your offer price needs to be, $785, not $770.
Yeah.
Just kind of help the client understand, like, there's a give and take. If you want this property, you need to understand that if we can work the closing costs into that deal, well, by all means do that. But oftentimes up front, real estate agents need the lender's help to kind of understand exactly what they need to be negotiating. 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, whatever the concessions are that we're working with.
Do you prefer one way or the other in terms of having the direct communication, or does it really matter to you?
If the client's comfortable with the real estate agent, I like kind of communicating with everybody, keeping them on the same page. When we get into the nitty gritty of the loan, we're asking about deposits and bank statements or withdrawals and things like that. Obviously, that's pretty granular. That's not the realtor's business. Like, we kind of try to shy away from going to the realtors with that stuff. But if there's an issue, like if a borrower is supposed to bring a bunch of cash to close, and all of a sudden we find out, a week before closing, the gift funds aren't going to be accepted, or there was a large cash deposit, a week before closing, the borrower never told us about. You've got.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of different crazy things over the years.
Sometimes borrowers have done some boneheaded things.
Goes out and get a car loan a week before closing or something.
Car loan, or cosigns on a credit card, or they buy a cruise, or they sign up for college, or they do something crazy and they have all these inquiries. One of the worst things that I've seen somebody do is they go to like a car dealership, like a used car dealership.
Then they get shopped around.
And then they sign one of those universal credit applications. And then next thing you know, they drop it on the fax machine. They're faxing it out to 20 or 30 credit unions.
Wow.
And everybody's banging their credit. Next thing you know, their 700 credit scores are 612 or something like that.
Right.
Just,
You got to be smart about that.
You got to be smart about that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Get pre-approved for an auto loan before you go shop for a car. just like a house. Don't do that.
There are obviously no shortage of different lending options out there, right?
Absolutely not.
Whether you're an agent working with relationships with lenders, or you're a homeowner that's looking to refi or looking to buy for the first time. So what would you say are, one, if multiple distinguishing factors? And you've already mentioned the difference between a broker, so I think that's a great one that we've already touched on. But is there anything else that you think you can elaborate on, whether that's specific services that you think Bay to Bay offers that makes you different than other lenders, or anything else that comes to mind?
No, I wouldn't say anything unique, anything special. I mean, our value proposition is our customer service and following up with their clients, being available nights and weekends. We have a very wide variety of products, and I think that that's the resounding reason a lot of real estate agents like to work with our team is because let's just say, for instance, if you're a real estate agent and you're going to refer a client that you're not quite sure on their finances to your best friend who's a loan officer at Bank of America. And they get to the end of a road and like, listen, you're self-employed, or you've got this income gap, you've got this situation, like this is just not quite vanilla enough for our big corporate institution. Mm-hmm. That's where I shine. That's where my team and I shine, because we've got so many different wholesale underwriters that we can take our clients' loans to. So our value proposition, or the reason that most realtors work with us, is not only the people are great that we work with, but it's also the lenders that we work with. It's our wide variety of loan products. That's one thing. When I left National City and Countrywide, when I left those two banks, I remember at the time I would refer deals out.
Yeah.
My buddies that were brokers that I couldn't close.
Right.
And I couldn't help the clients. I feel like I let my referral partners, the real estate agents I work with, down because you referred me your friend. I'm trying to help them, and I get down and we're like, well, there's a product out there, I just don't have it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't sit well.
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't happen at all.
Right. You guys can do VA loans. You're doing jumbo loans. You're doing
construction loans. We do bridge lending. We've got a bunch of local hard money lenders that we work with that get people hard money loans.
Yep.
We have fix and flip loans. A lot of our investors and the clients that we work with, we've got a very low cost, low interest rate, and I say that relatively speaking, to bridge loans and fix and flip loans. We've got local underwriters that do both of those products, which is pretty big for our realtor investors and our investor clients.
New construction as well, I take it?
New construction, yeah. We consistently compete with new construction. We have long-term rate locks we can offer clients, which really isn't very viable in this market because we're all over the place, and rates at this current time kind of appear to be coming down, at least short-term.
What do you think is important for people now? We're going into the beginning stages here of 2025. I know that you're very educated on just studying the markets and all the different reports and things that I know you get flooded with. We've had some conversations before with your knowledge, which is very impressive, just about the market as a whole. I'm curious your thoughts on 2025 so far, where you think things are going. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I know you have an opinion. What do you think is important for anyone to know out there potentially in terms of the lending world here in the short term or even long term?
With our new presidency and the new things that we have in leadership, so a lot of people are uncertain right now what's going to happen. There's demands to have lower rates. We'll see if that works out, if anybody follows through with that. I will tell you that I feel like there's a lot of momentum right now. People have been, kind of trapped in their homes since COVID.
Yeah.
With all these what they call golden handcuffs, these low 2% and 3% interest rates. They
all refinanced back then, right?
They all refinanced and no one's moved. Everybody's been afraid to make a leap. And I think people now either know that the time is coming, either now, it's come now, or it's coming soon, that they need to make a move to the next property. Otherwise, if they wait for rates to dip to find that next property, they're going to be in a situation similar to 2020 and 21 during COVID, when people were overpaying for properties, not getting sellers concessions, very, very seller-friendly contracts. People weren't getting values in those years. Some people even
you couldn't even do a home inspection. It was
couldn't
crazy.
do a home inspection. They weren't taking government loans. They weren't paying closing costs. No sellers concessions. Think about that now with the new buyer broker agreement. You got to negotiate for your commissions as well.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be even more chaotic than it was in 2020 and 2021 if something crazy happened right now and rates just were at 3 overnight. Like, hold on, it'd be crazy. But I can say this, I do feel like the best time to buy real estate's now. I feel like I'm not just saying that because I sell mortgages, but I do feel like that's true. A lot of people ask me like, well, what do you think about values in Tampa and St. Pete and Clearwater? Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater specifically, I don't see any value reductions whatsoever. I just don't. People talk about it, but I'm not seeing it. Like, oh, I see all these price reductions online. Well, that's because somebody listed their house too high the first time.
Yeah.
Just because, look at the average days on market. Average days on market right now is ticking up. But look at just sales price per square foot. But the places where I'm seeing values kind of soften a little bit is new construction in rural areas. New construction in urban areas, downtown, Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights, South Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, the beaches, like you're not really seeing values soften there either.
Yeah.
It's the southern areas like South Hillsborough County, even parts of like Lakeland, parts of like Pasco County, Hernando, Citrus, where you've got builders that have hundreds of homes in the ground.
Right around here, actually, 54 to 52, right?
You see some of that.
range.
I think a little bit further north, but
Yeah.
you see some of these builders that have so many homes in the ground, and in that situation, I've got a client of mine that did a VA loan with us a couple years ago. He's been on the phone. Him and his real estate agent have been talking on the phone. There's been a family, divorce going on, and so they've got to sell. Well, the builder's building the exact same home as them right across the street, and they know the subdivision across the street, $30,000 less than paying everybody's closing costs.
Right.
Like he did a VA loan. He's stuck.
That's a tough market to sell in.
It's a super tough market to sell in. So like having real talk with clients, like that's what I tell them. If you're going to see a softening in the market right now, I think that it's in the rural areas where the builders are. And that's about it. I mean, are you seeing values in areas? Yes. Distressed properties, that's where you're seeing a lot of value. That's why I think we've been doing a lot of bridge loans and a lot of
Have you seen a lot with all the storms and everything that we had recently? Has that been something that's you've seen an impact on your business at all for your investors and so forth that utilize those loans?
We have some of the lenders that weren't requiring inspections and things like that, like on HELOCs and other types of products, are now requiring inspections in all the flood zone areas. Just knowing like this property may have been impacted, so there's more inspections going on. On some deals, like where you get an appraisal waiver, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both offer what's called property inspection waivers, where you can, or an ACE, where you don't have to do an appraisal based on some algorithm that they have. The borrower is this strong, they're putting this much money down. All the sales in that neighborhood are all like 800 to 900 grand. They have a pretty good idea of what each home is worth.
Yeah.
In that case, they're still requiring some form of appraisal or some form of inspection because they're concerned about your home was in a disaster area or disaster zone. So we're seeing some of that.
Most of the investors, I guess, that are buying up a lot is mostly cash, right?
It's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
There's some hard money lending that's going on. We're even doing some like rehab lending. It's hard to get a conventional loan on a property that doesn't pass an inspection, doesn't have insurance. Yeah, you can't really get normal lending on that, but we've got a lot of loan products for that. We've got private investors that are willing to fund loans like that for people, depending on their investor experience. I even have investors that are willing to help them with the purchase as well as some of the rehab costs to do the rehab and work during the construction time.
Yeah.
We've seen a little bit of that in certain areas. It slowed down construction and it slowed down a couple of our deals that we were working on. So it's had its positives and its negatives, I guess, on business short term.
What percentage of your business with Bay to Bay is working on those types of more, I guess you would say, creative projects, whether working with investors directly versus your traditional retail, real estate?
I'd say probably 30 to 40%, maybe 40 to 50% some months.
So it's that high.
Yeah,
okay.
We've got a lot of people that need creative financing, and I think that's how they make their way to us. It's just maybe they've been told by one lender or two that you don't meet our guidelines or we can't help you.
Sure.
So then eventually their real estate agent or their friend or family member says, hey, talk to someone over at Bay to Bay and have them help you.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you do anything intentional, DJ, to try to like target those types of relationships at all? Is there a marketing campaign that ever goes out working with investors, or is it just organic? Like whoever kind of gets referred to you, that's who you start building those relationships with. What's your philosophy on that?
Myself and most of the loan officers on our team, we do a lot of just networking and in person, like meeting with referral partners, be it real estate agents, attorneys, other real estate professionals, a lot of insurance agents and attorneys, honestly, who send me a lot of my business these days. Everybody knows someone that has a need, you know what I mean, or a problem. And oftentimes, if they or someone,
especially when it comes to money, right?
Exactly.
We all need a good money man.
Exactly. Well,
in the portfolio.
And whenever that need for money has to do with like having real estate, whether it's residential, commercial, even whatever type of property it is they own, often they come to me and ask me my advice. What can I get on this, or how can I handle this, or what would I have to do to get a loan on this property? Because there's sometimes people have problems on the property.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about commercial too. Do you guys deal in that world too?
We do. And that's the reason some of the loan officers on our team are with us, is because our access to commercial lending too. We have local banks and local lenders that do commercial lending. We do some SBA lending, some 504 and 7A stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got SBA, we've got commercial.
So you'll even work with people that are looking to buy a business.
Correct.
On the SBA side.
Correct. I mean, as long as there's real estate involved. if we can do like a 504 or a 7A loan through SBA, which pretty much involves some form of real estate.
Yep.
That's where we can help.
Got it.
Through our local banks and lender partners, they'll provide the lending. We help them prepare the package, get everything ready to go, and then basically submit it on their behalf.
Is most of your business Tampa Bay focused, DJ? Or are you guys? I know you're not just in this market, but you're working with clients all over Florida and outside of state, or just Florida?
Primarily just Florida. Some of our commercial clients we work outside of the state of Florida with. We've done some residential lending in other states like DSCR loans and other stuff, but that's all specifically like commercial lending. It has to be a business purpose only loan. But we're a Florida licensed mortgage broker. Some of my clients are referral partners in like Naples. I've got some agents that work within the Keys in Miami, Jacksonville, Orlando, the Panhandle. I've got agents all over the state that send us business and that we work with. But our primary focus and where we work mostly with is the Tampa Bay region.
This is your only physical office, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Hyde Park. We have one office down near Bayshore on Hyde Park Avenue.
Yep. We were just talking about the big Gasparilla parade going on here this weekend. So you might have been invited to some of their parties over the years with that.
Most likely.
So that might change this year, but I'm sure you guys will still be out enjoying it, even though it'll be 30 degrees tomorrow. We're looking like here.
Absolutely.
In Florida, for sure. So now that you've been in the business as long as you have, like, do you find it fulfilling? Is it a business that you find fun? Is there certain aspects of it that you still really find challenging? What's your overall take on like being in the industry you're in?
I like it a lot. It's very fulfilling. I really enjoy helping people attain their financial goals and their real estate goals. Oftentimes clients come to me in a certain condition, and we have to kind of help them figure out like what they need to do to correct their situation, whether it's how they file their taxes the next year. Like they're not recognizing their auto expense, or they're recognizing their auto expense and they're not taking it out of their business account, so they can't omit it from their liabilities. Or maybe they've got an old collection or two that's hindering their credit score. Stuff like that. You got to get with the client early in the process. That's why I think real estate agents always sell the idea of, get pre-approved up front, because they don't want to be wasting their time. And they know that for some clients, it takes a while to get ready to buy. So,
and if you could, the earlier you know that information,
correct,
the more you can put a strategy together to actually help them get to the finish line.
100%. And I'm talking about buyers in the 195 to 295 like condo market. I'm talking about $700,000, $800,000 buyers. And I'm talking about buyers that are buying $2 to $5 million homes that just sometimes make boneheaded decisions and forget to pay an Amex, or they max out a credit card, or they use one credit card one day instead of the other one, so they put themselves over the limit. Like people do funny stuff sometimes, and in their mind, like, oh, I've got a 780 credit score. I'm like, well, you actually have a 660. You have a 660 actually. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes it's going through that expectation, explaining to consumers what the difference is between a free credit score that you can get online. Like one of those
Credit
scores
Karma
versus Credit Karma, versus like a real credit score that we pull. FICO 2, 4, and 5. Those are the FICO models that are used for mortgage purposes. The FICO that you get on. What did you say? What was that one?
Credit Karma?
Credit Karma. Yeah, Credit Karma is like the FICO 12 or FICO 8 or something like that. Like those aren't the same FICOs that we use for mortgage lending. So
I use a platform for a credit repair business that I've been involved with, Identity IQ. Are you familiar with them? They pull from all three.
Yeah, and that's a legit score. For my clients and the credit restoration companies I've worked with in the past, they also recommend Identity IQ because I think it has a low membership fee. And
it's like $30 a month or something like that.
But you can log in at any time, see what's happening. You can see what happens with disputes. And I think that's the reason a lot of people in credit restoration business like it, because you can go in, print your entire report, send it to them, and then they can see exactly what's happening and just attack the certain trade lines or the certain bureaus they need to.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. We talked a little bit already about like the challenges that arise when someone kind of makes some bonehead decisions before closing is supposed to take place. But I'm curious, your overall takeaway on what do you find the most challenging, if anything, just about the industry as a whole? Like in your personal experience, or maybe it's even something that you had to go through that was a challenging experience. Did anything come to mind there?
I guess I would say some of the more difficult situations I deal with is sometimes when a borrower doesn't get what they want or one of my buyers doesn't get what they want. I kind of take that to heart. It makes me feel like maybe I could have done something differently to change their outcome. At the same time, I know I can't help everybody and save everybody. So just like that situation, pretty much just the heartfelt, desire to really help people and serve people.
Do you guys still do a lot of stuff with like client appreciation events or things to try to like keep that relationship going with your clients?
We do. We're constantly trying to host events. I try to take extra special care to spend time with my referral partners and let them know that I do not only care about them, but I want to care about their business. I ask them questions like, hey, what other clients are you working with? Anybody else I can help you with? Things like that to kind of pick their brain and find out if they have a client. The bridge loan product that we've been helping people with recently has really kind of helped a lot of real estate partners of mine, like just create deals they didn't know they had.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you've got a seller that's sitting on the sideline because they think they have to wait for something to happen before they buy property B. They're stuck on property A. But oftentimes in that case, we could do some form of bridge loan financing, take the equity out of property A, leverage it to property B to make it viable for them to be able to buy now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
People don't understand that there's a bridge loan option out there.
Yeah.
So like just those types of organic conversations with my referral partners, I can oftentimes help them get a deal or get a listing they didn't think they were going to get right now. Like, I thought I was getting this in December. Now I'm getting it in February. Like, great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in lending specifically, there's such an importance when it comes to education because it's constantly changing.
100%
from my
it is.
experience. There's even just being on the show here, like there's things you said here today that I didn't even recognize, even though I've been working with lenders like yourself for many years now, And I feel like having a way that you can constantly educate your community, your network is important, right, in your world, whether that's through your own classes or your own social media channels or whatever you do to try to get that education out there. But I got to take that's a pretty important thing, right?
It is, and I can be the first to kind of point the finger at myself when it comes to my lack of social media presence when it comes to like more, I guess, promoting myself.
You got the face for it, man. You got to get out there more.
But realistically, I'm just not a prideful person, and I don't like to kind of like self-promote myself, although it's kind of contradictory. Like I kind of have to do that in my business.
Yeah.
Like my personal Facebook page, for instance, is mostly like me and my family, my wife and my kids, my life. Like that's kind of what I adore, and that's what I kind of focus on now. So I don't really put a lot of my business stuff on there. From time to time I will, and I've been trying to make it a better priority to kind of focus on more, driving social media to my company's website and things like that is something that we want to work on as a team.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, I think even if you view it from a standpoint of it's not as much about promoting your brand and just trying to like, sell and promote yourself, more about just providing value.
Right. Education.
Yeah. And you're full of it. Like every time I talk with you, you're very knowledgeable about your industry. You're one of the most knowledgeable people that I've talked to in the finance world, and I respect your opinions. So, and I'm sure you have other people too within your brand that you would feel the same way about, right?
Absolutely.
And having some vehicle that allows you to just share that knowledge on a regular basis so that people can learn from you and see what's changing in the market. What are some examples? Like I'm not trying to run your company, right? But if I was involved with your business in that way, having something in place that you can share the stories of those customers, like you just shared about the bridge loan and things of that, like examples like that turn into educational stories. Because how many agents are out there that would say, man, I wish I knew that even was an option because I lost a deal because I didn't know that, right?
Right.
And they can then pivot to somebody like you as an expert to kind of help position that. So just getting those stories out there, I think, is critical. Just a thought.
No, I like that. One of my buddies, Robert Harris, he's got his own company over in St. Pete, and he does this Just a Tip Tuesday thing. Like I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And he's always just doing
funny title too.
That's why I like it the most. And it just catches your attention, and but it's always good information.
Totally.
It's about a deal he's recently done, or something boneheaded some real estate agent that he knows did. Yeah. Like it's informational.
And it can be short form. It doesn't have to be long.
That's the thing. So I think if I adopt getting harder on social media, I think it'll be more like my buddy Robert's style, just a little bit more low key, subdued. Tell a story, share a story,
exactly,
and hopefully someone can learn from that and better themselves.
Yeah, and I think most people actually respond well to that type of content, right? Rather than the, hey, let me tell you about my company and my brand, and here's why you should work with me. Like that's not really, I don't think, what is appealing as much on social media.
No.
So it's cool. I'm glad we can flush some of that out even on the show today. So we're running out of time, but I did want to just a couple thoughts on just you personally. Your wife, Suzanne, beautiful wife, Suzanne, has been helpful for us, by the way, with our Tampa Bay Real Producers franchise over the years. Used to actually work with as an event coordinator with us. So shout out to you, Suzanne, if you're out there at all. I know you have some beautiful kids as well. What do you guys love to do for fun when you get a chance to just relax?
We like to travel, like take little vacation trips to different places around Florida. Get an Airbnb and a golf cart somewhere and just kind of hang out in a pool in a little tiny town. We like to go to, we've gone to places like Jensen Beach over near Vero.
Sure.
We've gone to places like, what's that place down there south of Sarasota? I'm forgetting.
Marco Island?
No, it's not that far. Anyways, we go to these other little places, these little remote beach towns.
Siesta Key is one of my favorite beaches down there.
It's south of Siesta Key. It's down by south of the Rotunda. I forget the name of it. It'll come to me in a moment here.
Yeah.
But like we like to go to places
little
like
road
that.
trips. Your kids are still little, so it's harder to take these international flights and
Right,
stuff.
exactly.
I was just talking to Bobby about that.
My kids are 4 and 5, so at 4 and 5, we did Disney last year. That was great. We took her there for my daughter Olivia's 5th birthday.
We both have a daughter named Olivia, by the way. That's another thing we have in common.
Yeah, and beautiful wives.
Yes, that's true.
So
blondes. We both seem to like blondes, so it is what it is.
So yes. So that we like to do that. I have family that lives in Michigan, so we like to travel to Michigan and see my aunts and my mom and all my family
Must
there.
have been
My
heartbroken
grandmother.
with that Lions loss, huh?
That was brutal.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
I mean, they fed us caviar all year long, and then that day they just.
I was actually discouraged by it because I'm a Giants fan coming from New York area, and I didn't want to see the Commanders advance, right? Especially now they have to play the Eagles. It's like my worst nightmare. 2 NFC East teams playing in the title, but it would have been. I was pulling for the Lions to make it to the Super Bowl this year.
It was almost as bad as Ohio State Buckeyes winning the national championship this year after Michigan Wolverines beat them. Yeah, they shouldn't even been there. But anyways,
I feel the pain.
As a Giants fan, you're like,
it's been nothing but pain for a decade. Yeah,
it's better than being a Lions fan. You know what I mean? Because as growing up a Lions fan, exactly. At least you have Super Bowls.
Right.
Growing up as a Lions fan, I think the last time the Lions won the championship, it was before the Super Bowl era. It was 56.
50s or something.
Yeah, so it was before there was even Super Bowls. So I've been teased my entire life. After living here in Tampa for like 22 years now, I can tell you I've converted. I'm a full-time Bucs fan. I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm a full-time Bucs fan.
I'm a Bucs fan. I actually went to the Bucs playoff game this year, and that was another heartbreaking loss, unfortunately.
I know I missed that one, but I was at the game before that when Mike Evans caught his last pass that was cool. Surpassed 1,000 yards.
That was cool.
I was at that game. So
took Jerry Rice's record down, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Tied it.
Yeah,
technically tied it.
That's right.
But after being a Tampa native now, so to speak, for 23 years, I've kind of
at least we got Tampa Bay, baby.
Yeah, I've become a huge fan.
Did win some Super Bowls lately.
I love the Rays, love the Bucks, love the Lightning. Go Bolts. I'm just, I couldn't be happier to be a sports fan in Tampa because I feel like I've gotten to see some amazing sports here over the time that I've been here.
Yep.
The Rays going as far as they did, the 162 lane.
You excited about the year this year at Steinbrenner Field or what?
I am. I'm interested to see how it's going to play out.
I'm going to go to some games, I hope.
I've heard so many people over the years talk smack, though, about how Tampa Bay needs an open air stadium and all this jazz. And I'm like, all right.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, wait till this year. Wait till half the games or a third of the games get rained out.
I know.
What's going to happen then?
No, it's going to be brutal.
It's going to be brutal.
That's going to happen a lot, too.
You see season tickets for those for that stadium, I think is like $15,000 for a basic season ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I think it's like $6,000, but you can only buy one of those.
Yeah.
And then you got to buy.
They only have 11,000 seats.
I know, but it's crazy expensive, those season tickets.
No, it is for sure. Because I think and the Braves have never been known for getting great attendance, right? But they averaged about 13,000 at the Trop, and so this place only holds 11,000.
I bet you this place sells out a lot.
Oh, it will be. Yeah, for sure.
Especially weekend games and evening
They should
games.
have every home game sold out with only 11,000 seats.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's almost embarrassing how bad that they show up in the games in St. Pete, but I think the stadium, people were over the stadium and they were over the drive.
Yeah.
I don't know that putting a new stadium in the same place is exactly the answer we need, but that's what we're going to get.
That's what it seems like.
That's what we're going to get.
Looks like it'll be a beautiful drawing anyway from what I saw.
It'll be a nice property, and I think it'll get more of a draw.
Yeah.
I also like how they're going to kind of improve the area around the stadium because right now it's just a bunch of empty parking lots, which honestly get taken over by kind of homeless people and not exactly what you want to see.
Right.
So by doing the new design and style that they're going to do, hopefully
it should be a nice decade ahead. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully
more property value increase out there, which St. Pete has had a nice rise over the last decade as it is. So.
Oh, absolutely they have.
All right, a couple rapid fire questions, DJ. What's your favorite book, if you have one, seminar maybe, or podcast that you ever attended? Anything that you feel like has made an impact on you personally or professionally?
Without sounding too cliche, I've watched a bunch of the Tony Robbins things and stuff like that. Some of that's for me, some of it's not. Just some of the fundamental things. Some of those fundamental things, though, when I have conversations with clients and they start asking me my questions in perspective, I kind of look back to just some more fundamental classic books like that. It kind of makes me kind of think about what I do and how I do my job. And
that's actually the book that got me interested in real estate investing back when I was like 19, was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
I also like different real estate podcasts and things like that. I like listening to high producing real estate agents kind of just talk about what gets them jacked up, like what they like doing, to get motivated, go get on the phone and start pounding phone calls. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you look at all your closings recently? Do you
how do you set the right mindset? Yeah,
exactly. What do you do to get your mind right to go to war?
Yeah,
go to work.
Totally.
So I like those types of podcasts specifically when I'm driving. My family and I, we moved from South Tampa up to the Carrollwood area, so now I've got a little commute every day. So I like to kind of fill my time by listening to these podcasts. So I listen. Do
you have a favorite one? Is there one podcast?
I listen to a wide variety. I just go through and switch through them all the time.
Gotcha.
Sometimes I get annoyed with one person or not talking about something I want, or I find a subject that I like to hear. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
Favorite TV show or movie? Got one?
I like to watch sports. My kids have me watching Disney nonstop, so I get a lot of Disney time with my little ones.
I can relate to that.
What I like to watch,
we have the Disney Channel on a lot at our house as well.
Yeah. What I like to watch, honestly, is like I don't want to say suspense, but like more war movies, I guess. Like,
sure. I like the old documentaries myself. Yeah, I'm a big history fan, so I love that stuff.
Too. I like that type of stuff.
Usually has to be once the kids are in bed, though, because they're bored by it.
Oftentimes, like, my kids will be in the other room and they'll walk in the living room, they'll see them watching. I'm watching like Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
Or like something like that. I like
Shark Week.
All that stuff, all the different videos. The kids come like, "Oh, Dad, turn that off." And it's like, whatever it is, lions, and like the kids love that stuff. So it's something to kind of keep my mind moving. Because other than that, I watch Bloomberg all day long. I'm always watching the financial news in my office. I got it on the TV. I'm always watching the news, what's happening with bonds, what politician's saying something stupid today. Like, I'm always kind of seeing that stuff.
That'll keep you busy for sure.
Definitely.
There's enough of that going around. All right, we're going to have to put a bow on the episode, but I'm going to end with this. This is what I call our legacy question to get you to think a little bit about, hopefully many, many years from now, when your kids are much, much older and you're sitting on that rocking chair and you're thinking about what you'd want to be most remembered for, right? The legacy that you'd want to be able to leave. Anything come to mind, DJ, in terms of what do you think would be most important to you and what you'd want to be most remembered for, personally or professionally?
I hope when my kids are older, they remember me for being a kind man that wanted to help people. I think fundamentally that's what's important to me. I think the legacy I'd like to leave in terms of like a long-term impression on maybe people in this industry or people that, help people buy homes is like, when you get in this business, make sure you're getting it for the right reasons, because I think a lot of people get into real estate or mortgages because they think there's like a quick road to getting rich, or they think it's easy, or they think they can work when they want, or it's just part-time. And
that's a mistake.
It's definitely a mistake. And I can promise you that if you get into this industry with that pretense, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You're not going to be successful. You're going to fail. You have to jump in this business with both feet. Don't think you're going to do something else and kind of like honeymoon as a loan officer. Like it's a rocky road.
Yeah.
You have to be kind of all in or all out. And I found that, the people that are on my team that are real with themselves about what their expectation is and what their ceiling is and what they can do, really do achieve happiness and success.
Yeah.
If somebody's going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to make 40 phone calls a day and I'm going to close $10 million a month, but then they're only in the office 2 days a week and they're only doing, like, they're not showing their work doesn't match what they're saying. It's just, you have to level up with yourself.
Your actions speak a lot louder than your words, right?
100%.
Yeah.
This business is a bunch of boring work, but it's methodical, boring work that you do every day, all day, the same thing, in and out. You're constantly doing the same functions for different people and in different capacities. But it's putting the time in. Like your panel talked about yesterday. Putting the time in, consistency, putting the time in, putting the hard work in, and having the systems and programs in place to be successful.
Yeah. It's funny how that's really the case no matter what business you're in, if you think about it, right? You think about 100%. The best athletes in the world, it's the boring stuff when the lights are off and they're in the gym and they're shooting free throw after free throw, or practicing blocking and tackling, or swinging the bats in baseball. Like, it's all that nitty gritty stuff that no one ever really looks at. That's really what makes you the champion when the lights are on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Tiger Woods.
It's good advice. And if you're not willing to put in that level of work, then maybe the industry is not for you, right?
I agree with that.
You have to make decisions.
Or maybe some other position in the industry might be better for you.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, we're going to end with, if anybody wants to pick your brain, DJ, like I said, you're very knowledgeable about your industry and know a lot about it. If somebody wanted to just reach out to you, have a conversation, learn a little bit more about the different services that you guys provide, what's the best way for someone to contact you?
They can send me an email. My email address is my initials, DJ, and my last name, Rondeau, RONDEAU, @betabaylending.com. Or my cell phone number is 480-6077. Also, betabaylending.com is our website. Any of those methods are fine.
Yeah, man. Sounds good.
Appreciate you, Don.
betabaylending.com. Like I said, they've been a great partner with Real Producers. We really appreciate your support over the years. And
Thank you, Don.
Hopefully the network that we've been able to work hard to try to create has been one that really understands your business models. And I know works a lot with you guys as far as the lending world. So if you're an agent out there who feels like you might need to up your game a little bit with your lending partners, I would highly recommend you connect with DJ and just have a conversation. And I know that the services they provide are top notch. So we're going to end the way we always do, which is a challenge to the audience to take action, right? If you listen to this on any of the 15 plus podcast platforms that we have out there, or you're watching on the live stream, what is one thing that you can do to take action from this conversation that'll make the time that you invested in this conversation worth it? Without that action, you tend to lose a lot of the value of committing the time that you just did. And if you listen to our conversation today, there's a lot of different things that you could do. Maybe it's just following it up with DJ to have a conversation. Maybe there's a service that he mentioned that you know that you've worked with a client on, or that you have a current need for with any of these different things. Maybe it was the conversation about the difference between a broker or a conventional or a bank lender. And I loved that distinction, right, that DJ was able to lay out for you. And that might have opened a couple of thoughts about who you are currently working with, or who you might want to work with in the future as you grow your brand and you grow your network, as a top producer out there. But what is it for you? What's one thing, right, that you can take action on today? It could be one of the simple books that DJ recommended as well that can make a difference in your mindset moving forward. So make a decision to become great in your business. That's really why we do this podcast, is to help you become a top producer in your desired market. Check us out again at topproducersnation.com to see the community that you can join for free, by the way, just to get access to our communities and get access to our resources to help you become a top producer in your desired market. We will see you on the next episode of the Top Producers Nation podcast. We'll see you later. Bye.